Well, good morning. Welcome back. It's 10:21. That's 21 minutes into the first hour of Doug Pagitt Radio, broadcasting live on AM 950. Call your friends, call your relatives, call your neighbors. Tell them to tune in.
Call your congressman.
Join you. Call your congressman, which we're going to be having some of these wannabe congressmen and wannabe state representatives here on the program.
Great.
In the coming week. Yeah, it's going to be quite exciting. Oh, you see, you don't sound excited about that.
No, not really.
The politics doesn't turn your crank. Sidekick.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're listening to the program, you want to be watching live, you can do that over at DougPagittRadio.com. You can see there, if you were tuning in, you can see the sidekick.
Yeah.
John Musick.
Hello, everybody.
See him right there.
Hi, Chris Collins from Granite City, Illinois.
If you're watching right now, there you go. If you're also watching, you can see over John's left shoulder, over the sidekick's left shoulder, you see Glenn, the new guy. He's been here for, almost as long as the show has been on, but if you start late, you're going to be the new guy forever. Okay, so I pick up the Saturday newspaper, which I like to pick up, and it used to have a whole section in there called Faith and Values. Now it has one little segment called Faith and Values. If you turn into page E3, Faith and Values includes one story, this one being the Jesus Seminar marks 25 years of questions. That's just above the religion calendar and right next to an article about itchy cats that may have a thyroid problem. So the Star Tribune has done a very fine job of placing the faith and values in a prominent place. There used to be an entire section. There was an editor just for the faith and values section, but now it's right next to the itchy cat story. But the cover of Variety section of the Minneapolis Star Tribune newspaper has two stories that I thought had great religious implication. Here's what they are. One of them is called Dust to Dust, and it's about in Minnesota that now you no longer have to embalm someone legally when they die.
Yes.
2006 law change. We'll talk to some of the, when we have these state legislators on, we'll ask them about that. Ask them why we have that law. But anyway, I think it's fine. So they now have a new law that you don't have to embalm someone, which means you can bury someone differently than you could before. So there's now this movement of things called green burials, or otherwise called natural burials. So they have an article about this, that you can now be buried. They cut a hole in the ground like they normally would, but they don't have to put the liner in there. They don't have to put the steel liner in. It's interesting. The way the article puts it, they say people who have spent their life trying to recycle cans now don't want to be buried in one. Oh, that's kind of an interesting take, right? So there's a sort of green movement, right? You can just take someone and you can put them in a pine box. You could put them in a wooden box. They even say you can put them in a shroud or their own blanket and just put them right in the ground, and their body would decompose sort of naturally, and there wouldn't be any embalming, because apparently embalming fluid is really bad for the environment, the steel, the whole thing. So people are saying, how about a more natural burial?
Yeah.
So they have this nice little article about it, right? And next to that, they have a nice little article about the changing appetite for circumcision. Appetite's probably the wrong word to use. The changing desire for circumcision, right? So it's an age-old debate if you should circumcise or not. So they run this whole article, and they tell stories about people who've decided to do it and people who've decided not to do it. And if you don't know what circumcision is, it's the removal of the foreskin of the penis on a young male baby. They're only talking here about male circumcision. In some countries, they do female circumcision. This has nothing to do with that.
No.
So they do this female circumcision, right? Or this male circumcision. And they're having this nice long article about it. Here's what struck me as interesting. In neither article did they raise any of the religious implications that went into why people buried the way they buried, nor why they did circumcision at all in the first place. And both of those, because religion has tended to have its fingers in our culture, in both the birth, the first thing that you do to a baby, circumcision, and the last thing you do with the body, burial, have very deep religious implications to them. They don't bring them up at all in either of these articles. Struck me as interesting.
Yeah.
Like, one of the reasons that people are so particular about burial, one of the driving reasons, is all connected to resurrection theology. That you're going to be resurrected in the great day, and your body needs to be preserved. So you wouldn't want your body rotting away. This is where some of the philosophy and theology of burial came from. You never know, says the story, when the great day of judgment is going to come, when all the dead are called back to life. So you don't want your body being half rotted away.
Yeah, so you got to preserve it.
Yeah, you got to preserve the body. So there was a whole movement to do this kind of embalming and caring for the body that had a religious impulse to it. In fact, you get into depth with people and you start talking about what you're going to do with the body, and a lot of people have these religious reasons for what they're doing.
Right.
The article doesn't mention a one of them.
Yeah.
Nothing at all about, and some people bury the way they bury, preserving the body and putting them in a casket and doing all that because they want to prepare the body for resurrection, which is a big reason why people do it. So I found it interesting that here was a whole article about burial which has had great religious input, didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, even since, the time of Egyptian pharaohs, it was all about preparing the body for the afterlife.
For the afterlife, yeah. And here, they don't even mention that, there might be some religious implications or some religious rationale. And I'm not saying you should bury or not bury. I'm a cremation guy myself. I think it'd be fine. But with this natural burial, it's even cheaper, I think. Just, wrap you up in a towel and throw you in the ground, That doesn't particularly bother me. But to some people, they're really motivated by the religious implication. Then the other article on circumcision, no mention of the religious nature or the religious impulse of it at all. Not even a mention that for people of the Jewish community, that circumcision is connected to the covenant promise of God, and that's where circumcision came from in the history of people, the Hebrews of Mesopotamia. Don't even mention it. And for a lot of people, circumcision still is, it's not a health issue, it's a cultural, religious expression.
Right.
And it marks, look, we can get into a whole thing, and anybody who's not into religion, this is one of the points that really ought to come up, right? Like really? So you religious people decided the thing you were going to do to really mark your religion was to do circumcision on baby boys? But if you don't know, circumcision, that's removal of the foreskin of the penis, was a mark that child was a part of this larger family in the covenant family of God from the Hebrew peoples of the Old Testament. Well, they don't even mention in the article anything about religion as it relates to circumcision.
Incredible.
I find, and I'm not bemoaning, right? I'm not griping, because I don't think that religious people need to have newspaper folks do their bidding for them. I'm not saying, hey, we're so important, you need to tell our story. I'm not. I just find it intriguing that perhaps the authors of these articles, strangely enough, Jeff Strickler, who is the editor of the Faith and Values section. He's the Faith and Values guy. I've been on him on this show before. Jeff doesn't say anything at all about the religious implications on that. And then this other person for the Star Tribune wrote the article on circumcision. That is kind of interesting. And I think it gets to the point of why I think this radio show is important and why we want to have this conversation more broadly. Because for so many people, they don't even know how to think about the integrated reasons and rationale and history of religion that plays out in the society that we live in.
Sure.
So I find it to be terribly, terribly interesting.
Yeah, you'd think as they're trying to give information about, about burial and circumcision, they might want to include, the original,
the background.
Yeah.
So I thought about you two this morning, the sidekick and the new guy, and I thought I should ask two of you, how do you plan to be buried? There, sidekick.
Well, I went to the Green Expo and learned about this. I'm totally with that.
All natural in the ground.
All natural at some park and put a rock at my head.
Well, I don't think they can just do it in a park. I think they still have to do it in a cemetery. That's getting a little gross. New guy, what are your plans?
Just the normal, traditional way, I guess.
Embalming and then put in a casket and sort of preserved, for a time. Yeah, I'm gonna be cremated.
Yeah.
I'm going to be cremated. Here's the thing, right? That's the one thing we don't really have any control over. We can say what we want. All right, so the second question, circumcised or uncircumcised?
Circumcised, all the way. Lynn?
Sidekick, circumcised, uncircumcised? Same deal.
Okay.
And I never even thought about it. So we just want to circumcised.
Okay.
Circumcised, going to be burned.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
We are of the circumcision.
And interestingly, even though I went on this whole rant about religion, I don't think my circumcision had anything to do with religion for my parents. I know it didn't. It was just sort of the custom of the day.
Yeah.
And I know I've had to push back against people who think you shouldn't do cremation because they think it destroys the body for resurrection. But
yeah, how could the God of the resurrection put your body back together?
But I've said, the God of the resurrection can handle that.
Right, yeah.
All right, so that's what's going on in the Star Tribune. We're going to be back here with the curator of the Mommy Revolution, Carla Barnhill, right after this in Doug Badger Radio on AM 950 and DougBadgerRadio.com.
30 years in radio. First time I've got to share that.
Welcome aboard. Not quite right.